You know, love is a strange thing. It doesn't always announce itself. It doesn't always arrive with fireworks, clarity, or certainty. Sometimes it whispers, and you don't hear it until the echo has already faded. I didn't understand that until much later, until after it all ended, until after he was gone, and I was left with silence, and the realization that I loved him, truly loved him, but by then it was already too late. I think the hardest kind of regret is not the things you did, but the things you never said. The moments you let pass because you thought you had more time, because you believed the door would always stay open, because you didn't realize the value of something until it slipped quietly out of your hands. That's what happened with him. With us, or whatever us was supposed to be. I met him at a time when I wasn't looking for anything. Not love, not companionship, not even attention. I was busy with my life, or at least I told myself that. I had goals, I had work, I had routines that felt safe and predictable. He didn't fit into any of that. He was warm, open, honest in a way that felt unfamiliar. He talked about feelings without hesitating, listened without rushing, noticed small things that most people ignore. And I kept my guard up. I didn't want to feel anything too deep. I didn't want to depend on someone. I didn't want to risk being hurt again. So every time he stepped closer, I stepped back. Politely, quietly, gently, but I still stepped back. At the time, I convinced myself it was the right thing. I told myself that I was protecting my peace, that I wasn't ready, that he deserved someone more open, more emotionally available, more healthy. I didn't realize that sometimes the heart knows what it wants long before the mind catches up. There were small moments, tiny cracks in my walls, where I felt something shift inside me. Like when he laughed at something I said, and his whole face lit up. Or when he asked me how my day was and actually waited for the answer. Not the polite version, not the short summary, but the real, raw truth. Or when we sat in silence and it didn't feel uncomfortable. It felt peaceful, easy, like I didn't have to try. But every time my heart tugged at me, I pushed it away. I said things like, "We're just friends," or "I'm not ready," or "It's not the right time for me." He never pressured me, never asked for more than I was willing to give. But I could see in his eyes, he felt something real, and he was waiting. I didn't know then that waiting has an expiration date. There was one night, simple, ordinary, yet it changed everything. We were talking, just like always, laughing about something stupid, and suddenly he stopped. He looked at me in a way that made time slow down. Soft, warm, hopeful. And he said, "You know, you don't have to push me away. I'm not going anywhere." I felt something inside me, a pull, a spark, a quiet longing, but I panicked. I told him I wasn't ready, that I didn't want to ruin our friendship, that I didn't want him to get hurt. He nodded. He smiled softly, but something in his eyes dimmed, just a little. And I noticed it, but I ignored it because I thought he would stay anyway. I was wrong. Weeks passed. We still talked, but something was different. He was quieter, less present. Still kind, still warm, but distant. And then one day, he told me he had met someone. My heart didn't break at first. It tightened, twisted, felt heavy, but I didn't cry. I smiled. I congratulated him. I told him I was happy for him. I lied. And maybe that was the first time I realized something was wrong inside me. Because when he talked about her, his eyes sparkled the way they used to when he looked at me. And that's when I felt it. The sharp, quiet sting of jealousy. The ache of losing something I never admitted I wanted. But even then, I still didn't let myself feel the truth. Not yet. The realization didn't come dramatically. It didn't come like a movie scene with tears and music and sudden clarity. It came quietly, like everything meaningful in my life. I was in my kitchen, washing dishes, an ordinary moment, nothing special. And I remembered the way he used to lean against the counter, talking to me while I did the same thing. I remembered his smile, his voice, his presence, his softness. And then it hit me. I loved him. Not as a friend, not as someone I might like. I loved him, fully, genuinely, deeply. And I realized it when he was no longer mine to love. My knees almost gave out. I had to hold on to the counter. Because the truth, when it finally arrives, doesn't knock gently. It breaks through. I stood there, with water running and tears falling, and the bitter understanding that I had lost something precious, not because someone took it from me, but because I refused to claim it while it was mine to hold. Loving someone too late is a special kind of heartbreak. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, constant. A dull ache that lives beneath the surface and doesn't go away. I watched him move on, gently, naturally, without anger, without resentment. And I had no right to ask for anything. Not another chance. Not an explanation. Not forgiveness. Because he hadn't done anything wrong. I had, by staying silent, by hesitating, by being afraid of love until love was no longer mine. There is no apology for loving too late, only acceptance. Sometimes life doesn't give you second chances. Sometimes the love meant for you passes through your fingers because you were too busy building walls instead of bridges. I learned something painful, but necessary. If you feel something real, say it before silence becomes your answer. Choose love before time chooses for you. Because love doesn't always wait. People get tired. Hearts move on. Even the kindest ones, especially the kindest ones. I'm not angry at him. I'm not angry at her. I'm not angry at the world. I'm sad, but not broken. Regretful, but not hopeless. Because this story taught me something I had never understood before. Love is not found. Love is chosen. Chosen in the moment, in the fear, in the uncertainty. And if you don't choose it, you lose it. He was someone I could have loved beautifully, and he would have loved me back. But I waited. until maybe someday became never. I realized I loved him when it was already too late. And now I choose not to make that mistake again. Thank you for listening.